top 10 major global companies by market capitalization now are all tech companies. It's a major trend. Everybody talks about how all companies should become or should think to become tech companies. And Vodafone, as you described in your presentation, is going towards that way, is gearing towards becoming a tech company. How do you achieve such a shift at the company culture level? Is it something that you're discovering along the way, or you already have it all figured out?
Interesting question. First of all, the market capitalization of the big tech is shrinking rapidly as we speak. However, I do believe that technology-based companies will continue to be up there, if you like, with the top players. How can you do it? It's not easy. It's not easy. It takes time, especially if you are a large established company with ways of working that have been, ingrained in the culture of the company. You need to do it partly by organically, but partly by force as well. So if I'm honest, we have, both in Romania but also abroad, we have seen many changes over the last years in terms of skill sets that we acquired in. We use a term called acqui-hire, for example. So we've acquired businesses with know-how for the people. So to really inject, if you like, this mindset quickly in the organization. But the other most important thing for me is give opportunities to the younger generation. So take risks. And we've taken quite a few risks, if you like, to promote people from within, younger people. We really do a lot of work with graduates, for example, globally. The mix of the two gets your culture shift. And the other thing for me is communication, communication, communication. You have to be, out there. You have to preach the whole time. You have to make people understand where we are going, what's needed, what's the direction, and you need to vividly demonstrate, if you like, that we're getting in this direction. So I think these are the things that I would put as priorities, let's say, in this change.
Thinking about what you said about communication, your presentation has somehow led to the conclusion that services that you have been promoting, like 5G and so on, are also directed to the big players. How is Vodafone serving? And this is one of the questions that we received from the public. How is Vodafone planning to serve more the middle and small companies?
So we are already beginning to do that with a very untraditional, I would say, portfolio of services. So when I talked about solutions for digitalizing businesses, it's a trend that started a few years ago in other markets, I have to say. Romania is far behind in this trend. But for now, I can give you two examples. So in Greece and in Spain, we lead consortia that actually are absorbing EU funds, recovery funds, and have basically developed modules, specific modules, depending on your vertical, on the type of company you are, and your digitalization objective, so that we are able to come to you and provide to you the whole solution. The other thing that we've upskilled a lot are our salespeople. So historically, if you like, telecommunication salespeople were all about, connectivity. I'll give you this speed, this price, this bundle, and so on and so forth. We have developed a very different set of skills, if you like, on our sales guys. And now we're more and more talking about with our customers about what is the problem you're trying to solve. Where do you want to take your business? And then we come and offer the solution, which will include connectivity, of course, because connectivity is the core component, if you like, of what we offer, but also the additional products and services that we do. By the way, we are not, the other thing that we have changed as a mindset, Vodafone used to be of the mindset in the old era that we do everything ourselves, right? We have to do it, it's the Vodafone way, and so on and so forth. Not the case. We work with partners. So where we know we're not the best of breed, we will reach out and we work with the big tech, as well as small and medium enterprises. We have a big ecosystem of local technology partners that we work with in developing solutions for small businesses.
So collaborative model is
Absolutely.
the future. Talking about, sorry.
I just figured out that we have a very unique opportunity to have three very important leaders of very important organizations in Romania, Sergiu, Iulian, Achilleas. We have thousands of employees in total, and they are all somehow challenged by the disruptions we are seeing, and Matthew described so well. And I'm wondering how challenging it is for each of you to permanently adapt, change, compete in many ways with startups, with big tech. So it's like, I don't know, a competitive sandwich or something.
Middle.
Yeah, you're squeezed in the middle. So on the one hand, we have such a wonderful landscape of startups that some of you are trying to tackle or to cooperate with or to acquire and so on and so forth. On the other hand, is the big tech threat. It's like a permanent threat. If Facebook wants to become tomorrow a telecom company, they can do so. A lot of people are using WhatsApp now to do the voice call. And I remember before you took over Vodafone, and also in my discussions with the previous CEOs of telecom companies in Romania, I was always wondering why the telecom companies are promoting WhatsApp, because for me it was obvious that it's a potential competitor too. Also, for a big bank, it's very challenging if, I know, a big tech company wants to launch, I know, cryptocurrency, or they want to enter this space. They are trying, but they don't want to take also the disadvantages. Also for an e-commerce player, it's very challenging. How do you manage those challenges, and how do you separate where the competition starts and where the cooperation ends on both sides? I'm very curious because for me it's very complicated. So I see it like a big challenge. Sergio.
Okay, so in fact you don't manage this. I think trying to manage this will be a self-defeating exercise. What you need to do is actually stay concentrated with what both of them were saying in their speeches, what Matthew was saying. What problem are you trying to solve, for whom, right? And how critical it is that problem also is embedded in your business model, right? So in other words, actually you fight this, if you like, natural attrition of the incumbents, right? Because this is what's happening. It's anthropologic, right? You are fighting it by opening yourself up. And actually, that's the biggest exercise we need to do in incumbent organizations, to actually learn to open ourselves up, learn to listen, right? Learn to demonstrate that we listen. And in fact, creating, if you like, a strategic line. Again, I go back to what Matthew was saying, out of creating a partnership ecosystem, which was mentioned actually by both Iulian and Achilleas in their speeches. It's, in my humble opinion, is the only way. I think incumbent organizations were too rigid for the last 500 years. In the last 500 years, basically all rigid incumbents died. And it's, seriously, right? And I'm talking economic, flexible, leaders of the pack at certain times in history. And one of the reasons for they did die was that they were not able, on one hand, to open themselves, and second, they are not having at least the aspiration, if not the courage, to disrupt themselves. That's basically how we are trying to.
Disrupting yourself is like
it's absolutely critical. Okay. And then obviously luck plays a huge role in this, right? So which taught at least myself another lesson. It's one thing to adapt yourself and try to be great functionally, but in fact that still means that you are trying to solve your own old problems. You are not trying to solve problems for someone else today. So at least allocate a part of the portfolio. Portfolio means time, right? Time of your colleagues, your best colleagues, or all of your colleagues, to actually learn, innovate, pose problems, and try to solve problems. So it's really a people matter. It's not a technology matter.
Okay. Iulian?
What I will add is the idea of stakeholder engagement. Because in a business, you engage with different type of stakeholders. You start with usually with customers, which can be different type of customers. Can be, I don't know, retail, commercial customers, and so on. We have now genius, non-genius. So you can segment the customers on different ways. After that, you have employees, you have partners, which can be, again, segmented. You have the state, you have the communities, you have now the environment, and so on. And you need an engagement with each one of them. And this is continuously changing. So you have to adapt by learning what is happening in the market, how the situation is changing in the market, and what is relevant for each type of stakeholder. And on top of that, I think our role as leaders of the organizations is to divide the value produced by the organization between different stakeholders, which during crisis is extremely difficult. Because if you look back, when the company was invented 200 years ago, the idea was very simple. The company is invented to produce shareholder value, and that's it. But I think our job is to keep engaged over the long time, not only the shareholder, but also the other stakeholders. Mm-hmm. And this is the key problem, because if you look at how many companies signed pledges, ESG and so on, until last year, a lot. How many dropped the pledges this year? A lot. Okay. Because, shareholders, they have at the end the final saying. And when they are coming, hey, we want our return, no matter what, kick out employees, kick out consumers, cut benefits and so on, squeeze suppliers, and that's it. But at the end, if you want to be sustainable over the long run, you have to balance very well all the stakeholders and keep them engaged.
Okay. Achilleas, if you want to
I think
add something.
You need to have very clear objective in your mind. Mm-hmm. What's your end game? Where do you want to land, basically? And that clarity is needed. Why? Because especially in complex organizations, you tend to diverge very easily and very quickly from that end game. You need to define what's my role in there, mm-hmm. and work backwards to say, okay, if this is my role, what am I doing today? And what are the bits and pieces that I need to get rid of? And the bits and pieces that I need to keep developing. And the last bit for me is be open to partnerships. Okay. It's a highly interconnected, interlinked world. It's far more complicated to act as the vertical integrator of everything. So you need to be open to partner with the right people. So if you have this mix, I think it's something that will allow you to disrupt yourself constructively and end up where you want to land, basically, without breaking the business.
Yeah, it's very interesting because we have this platform approach that is somehow common to a bank that is opening up to different stakeholders, to an e-commerce player that is opening the marketplace, and how far we can see from the new strategy of Vodafone. Vodafone is also becoming less and less a telecom company and more a tech company, I guess. Ionuț, I know for a fact that you are overseeing a lot of startups and business ideas. They want to become the next EMAG, the next Vodafone, the next BCR. How things are from your perspective? What do you think a big company, a big corporation should do, and also what you're advising the startups you're involved in? How to play it? Where the competition starts, where the cooperation starts?
There's an interesting paradox, and we may have noticed part of it in the panel we had with the startups, which is that technology which is developed here is then going to other markets. So it's becoming a fungible asset transferred to other virtual markets, but that is not consumed because sometimes people are not even aware of what is being developed by these startups, by these tech developers in the community. So it's not consumed, it's not targeting the local market. And then we have the local market, and just going also back to what Achilleas was saying about this process of digital transformation that is driven by various players. You have global technologies or technologies that are developed on other markets which are then soft-landed in the territory. So we are here in Brașov or in Brașov County, Centru region, Romania, and we are exporting a lot of technology while we are importing a lot of technology. The paradox is that sometimes it happens that technology developed here becomes part of a bigger ensemble somewhere else and comes back. We've seen that. We see it with cars, but we see it also with software. And what I think is the challenge of the upcoming years is to try to interweave things. And it has to do with your question, whether every company will become a software company. It's easier for the Beceres, the Vodafones of the world.
But not necessarily only software. We're also talking about data companies because they're also in the same field. Data appropriation and business models.
We all want to be, you know, it's funny because we need first-party data and we need to act responsibly using the first-party data, and any business needs a community. Everybody wants a community. Everyone wants a client base that is more involved than only being a client and so forth. So it's pretty complex.
Well, an important step for this is to go towards data-driven decision models. And in order to implement that in a company, it is difficult in a big company because you need to first generate the data sources, then to try to benchmark, understand how to take decisions. But then when you go outside of the big companies into the SMEs, into the public sector, you notice that you don't have no data. You're far away from doing that. So I think that what the challenge for us in the upcoming years is, in order to catch up with other cities, with other regions, and hopefully to overtake them, is to accelerate this kind of a process of implementing data-driven decision models in our businesses. And I think we have a good potential here in Brașov to do that in fields like tourism, because in tourism you can get a lot of data. You can get it from Vodafone or from other telecom players, from the signals of the phones, and you can take decisions because you can see where these people are coming from, where the origin of people going into a shop are. You can measure that in other ways. You can do that then in fields like smart city, which is a very used and abused word these days. But obviously, if you want to do smart city, it's not just about smart lighting system or photovoltaic panels, but it's about data-driven decision models. And I think that is something that is quintessential for the evolution of industries in our region here, and it's something that we can easily set up by facilitating the kind of cooperation that, again, Achilleas mentioned is happening in Greece. And I think it's a good opportunity to also mention that in a similar way we have now in our region the opportunity of making use of the model of the digital innovation hubs, which is a tool of the European Commission to accelerate the digital transformation of each region in Europe. And we are just now starting the process of supporting digital transformation of SMEs and public authorities in Centru region through a similar project here with a budget of almost 5 million euros. And we have universities involved in this, we have the city involved in this. So things will happen, and I really hope that people are open to become part of the change that's coming our way.
We can sit here for hours, but the time is up already.
I have one serious question, because both Ionuț and
one question, and then we are.
There's a funny question also for Sergiu, but I will leave it.
We are just trying to play a little game in the end because it's already late. So please do your.
Okay, so one serious question and one funny one. Okay, so the serious questions comes for all of you, because both you and Iulian threw kind of a ball at me with data-driven models and responsibility. All of the companies that you're representing should or ideally would implement responsible business models, especially considering the fact that you're all based on data appropriation. How do you aim to do that? Because at this point, technology has grown exponentially. humanity has not grown exponentially. Cognitively, intellectually, we have. But per se, human beings are pretty much the same as we've been 100 years ago. Healthier, smarter, I don't know, better dressed, healthier in terms of longevity as well.
Yeah, I think this ethical business model and responsibility business model, it's a trend that is very interesting to see, and maybe also Matthew can add some value here. So is this a trend? Is this something that we will see in the next year? So clients will also decide to work with a bank that is more responsible compared with another bank, or just the profit or the best offer matters?
You mentioned the World Bank. Actually, I would have been interested to hear Ionuț and Matthew answering to the question, but you looked at me, so... look, I think it's... I think functionality, it's a commodity, right? And by the way, no bank was the one creating an experience, right? It all started after the dot-com bubble, so we are 25 years late to the party. So what we can do is to offer seamless functionality, but we really need to take care that we follow the purpose. Some of us appeared, and that means taking care of the financial life and the financial health of the people, companies, and communities we are getting in contact with. That per se, it's about decision making. It's about education and decision making. I want the people who are coming in contact with us to have a better life and be better off. They will not be better off because I will be able to save 5 or 10 minutes in their lives. We are doing this already, but that's not enough. It's enough, it will be enough maybe one day when we are going to be able to fill in those 5 minutes we save with a conversation about how is your life, with the conversation how can we help you, and with a conversation about how is your decision-making process. I think for us, this is basically the path we are going to follow, but it's all about data, it's all about tech, and first and foremost, it's about people.
Okay. Achilleas?
Yeah, I mean, sense of purpose is very important. And I've, in the telecoms space, I've lived the era, the change, if you like, between very basic purposes to real purposes. And I really believe that we, as a Vodafone, we say we connect for a better future. It's a purpose that, instills our culture through and through. And we take conscious decisions that are economically adverse as a consequence of our purpose. And we are super vigilant and super careful with, for example, how we use the data of our customers. Far above and beyond sometimes even the EU regulation, So we're very mindful of the impact we have in the societies that we operate in. And that drives a lot of our decision making and a lot of hard, difficult decision making. But I think it pays off because at the end of the day, in my opinion, Sergiu touched upon it. There's so much competition about everything. What distinguishes Vodafone from Orange, let's say, for example, in Romania? Yes, okay, the quality of your service, the experience you have in the shops. But at the end of the day, if a brand stands for something and vividly demonstrates that in the local society, I think for me, increasingly, in the eyes of the consumers, will become a criteria for selecting the brand. So, that's why we are very serious about it. It's part of our culture. It guides what we do, and it guides who we recruit and how we cultivate people.
And also depends if the consumers, the audience, will appreciate this or not, because we have examples of very efficient business models that are not that ethical, and it's a little bit hard to decide, okay, I will be ethical, but I let others do a bigger profit. Iulian?
I will take this responsibility or sustainability, let's say, topic, where I think if you look at consumers, and we are doing studies every 3 months in order to see what's important. And we are asking them, I don't know, delivery, selection, price, sustainability, rational and emotional attributes. Sustainability is growing, but it's still not on top 3. I think it's the 5th one,
Okay.
but it's still far away from being the main driver of selecting your partner or product or service. This is one topic, but it's relevant because I had some discussions here with some entrepreneurs, and they told me, look, I'm building this business and it's sustainable, and this is what I'm selling to consumers. And I told them, look, you need to see if what you are selling is really relevant in order to change people from buying from somewhere else to come to you. And the second topic is the standard of sustainability, because I think today any company can claim it is sustainable. And still this standard is in the making. But until there will be no standard, everybody could claim.
Just
and anyway,
buzzword.
the decision will be taken by shareholders in most of the companies, and it will be just a PR stunt. And the companies, usually the family companies, they are sustainable over the long run. And I know it's one of my favorite examples. It's studied in Stanford. It's called Tamagoya. It's a family business, third generation in Japan, which is doing something like we are inventing now with the Taz and Glovo, and they are doing for 40 years already. And the company is saying like 5% is profit for the company, all the rest is distributed to employees, and some part is given back to the community. And this is by design the most powerful and sustainable company. We can do that now. This is the company that can be projected from day one this way. Okay. Yeah, again, it should be a standard in order to respect things. Like GDPR came with data, and GDPR is with 2 layers. One is the front end with cookie, which is a madness and didn't solve anything. But the second one, which is hidden and it's very important, is the privacy by design, which is extremely difficult. And I can tell you from a big organization, you should segment the data to be available, and only part of the data to people who work only with that data, not more, and with a lot of layers of protection and segmentation and so on. So which is good for the consumers, but it's difficult for companies to change that overnight.
Ionuț, Matthew, your
so many ideas came up. This is the kind of question that one would have in an MBA to write an essay until next day.
We can write a PhD if we are staying out until midnight.
But I was thinking also about what Sergiu said, that the old leaders of the market never let themselves be disrupted within. And I think when we talk about ethical, yes, obviously we need to be ethical, but then when we talk about playing by the rules in order to disrupt ourselves in the market, sometimes we have to break the rules. And we can go very philosophical here, but let's look at Uber. Uber disrupted markets.
Mobility.
And then it got disrupted itself, but at least in Romania. But was it ethical? Maybe, I don't know. And then let's zoom out and talk about what innovation means. If we look at the initial sense of the word innovation, it meant to break with the Holy Scripture. So it meant to break the rules. And now let's zoom a bit in, just a bit, to see where Romania is. We are last or behind the last one in digitalization, innovation, and so on in all the European benchmarks. If we're going to respect the rules, we're always going to stay in line.
Do we respect the rules? Do you think that's the case? That's why we are last?
No, but if we advance, if we go forward and we go a bit slower than everyone else and we stay in the same position, we have to cut the line. To cut the lines means to break the rules. So we have to be ethical, but find ways to break rules so that we advance faster and we change the speed. Like from first gear going to fifth. That's what I'm saying. And that's a bit breaking the rules, because the rule is go first, second, third, fourth, fifth. We have to go first to fifth and do it really fast. And I think that's the challenge, and I don't know the answer, because it's a challenge we have in our company as well. It's a small company, very small, 25 people. But still, how can we be ethical with our people while accelerating, going into fifth, breaking some rules, while respecting the law, and growing? And it's a big challenge. I don't know the answer. It's a process, I think. You know.
Okay, let's see your view, Matthew, and then I would kindly ask all of you to think about one or two ideas that you think they are very important for the people to take away, to note down. I opened up a blank digital paper here, responsible, and I want to note what idea do you think is essential, or do you want people to take away and go home with? Matthew, your observations and the idea you think is very important for the audience to note down, please.
Well, so firstly on the ethical stuff, generally when you have conversations, especially with the younger generations believe that capitalism is generally responsible for the way that we treat each other, but also the way that we treat the planet. So, for example, basically the younger generations generally believe basically that, you know, capitalist organizations are much more likely to treat their workers like commodities, but also treat the planet like commodities. So, particularly in Europe, but also in the US, basically we're seeing the rise of what we call ethical capitalism. Now, ethical capitalism isn't new. Basically, it's been around for hundreds of years. Basically, organizations like Mars basically have actually sort of embraced it wholeheartedly. But this is based on the principle of, for every dollar that I invest within my business, how do I maximize the profit that my business can make, while also maximizing the benefit of that $1 investment to people and planet, whether those people are within my business or external to my business, so communities, for example, and so on and so forth, or planet. Now, one of the other things that I sort of increasingly talk about is, you know, I represent organizations that have about $50 trillion worth of assets under management, so organizations like BlackRock, UBS, Citigroup, Legal & General, those kinds of guys. And when we actually have a look at ESG, from an investment perspective, investors basically are now generally staunchly investing in organizations that are able to demonstrate that they have strong, purposeful ESG credentials, proper reporting and monitoring strategies, and so on and so forth in place. But when we actually have a look at sustainable business simply takes us to the point where we say, okay, we have already done an amount of damage to the planet, whatever it happens to be. So now that we are a sustainable business, we are going to stop damaging the planet, for example, or minimize the damage. So I continually argue, and we see boards now, particularly in the Fortune 50, now starting to move in this direction, where we say, should we be talking about sustainable business, where we simply stop the damage that we've done to the planet? Or should we talk about regenerative business, where we start repairing the damage that has already been done to the planet? So, for example, reforestation. You know, when we start having a look at lithium-ion batteries, for example, in Japan, Europe, and in the US, we're trying to actually eliminate cobalt and lithium from the lithium-ion batteries so that we don't need to mine it. So when we start talking about how we treat each other, basically, I typically think that organizations as well as individuals, we should be raising people up. So the companies that you work with should be your champions and sponsors that are there to help you succeed in whatever it is that you actually want to do. You know, when we actually have a look basically at purpose-led businesses, again, younger generations basically typically want to buy from, work with, and work for organizations that are purpose-led, where these organizations are typically seen as being much more selfless. It's about other people, not us, putting communities first, and so on and so forth. That's it. And it's interesting to sort of go around the world. You know, so I've been in 40 different countries in the past 2 months. That's it. These kind of messages gel with almost everybody. it gels with business leaders, etc., etc. So we are starting to move in the right directions generally. So there is still a lot of work to be done. But if we aren't fundamentally here to lift everyone up and each other up, then we're not maximizing all of our potentials or revenues.
Basically, we are trying to reinvent capitalism with the human layer. We take the best from the whole world. So the idea to take home, Ionuț, and the audience can see that we will really take notes here.
I think an important idea is that we have no excuses.
No
saying
excuses.
that we are in Brașov, so we cannot do things, because we noticed today that there's people doing things globally. We might have not been aware of them, but I think we have no excuses, and we need to do more for the city, for the community, for ourselves while living here. The last couple of years, or 3 years, showed us how we can work remotely within the city, from home to the office. We can do the same at a global level, and I think the city is offering us great opportunities to become global from within.
So we have to write there very big, no excuses.
Yeah?
Okay.
No excuses.
Iulian?
I will take the idea from the discussion I had with Sergio and also with Sabine. The idea of hope.
Hope.
Yeah. So there is hope for Romania. There is hope during a crisis, after a crisis, and we as entrepreneurs or business people, we should aim higher at changing things in a better way. But we need to start with hope and positive attitude.
Okay, so beep, Miorica. You can write there. Achilleas, your idea to... Sure. Our colleagues are writing down the conclusions. So
yeah, that's what scares me. I'll stick with the one word theme that emerges from the panel.
Okay.
And I will address the small business owners, which is potential. There is a lot of potential in Romania. I have benefited from living in 5 countries, working in 4 markets, and I can tell you, the pessimist in me says, my God, how far behind Romania is in the process of digitalization. But also, if I'm the optimist, I'm saying, my God, how much potential there is. And I will say that over the next 3 years, I would urge the small business owners to reach out. Technology is not expensive, it's not difficult, and it's quite disruptive. So reach out, there is help. Vodafone can help. Other companies can help to really grasp that potential.
Okay, so there is no too small business. It's important. Okay, Sergiu.
Well, I'll just build on what I just heard, so it's easier. We love to be integrators, as I said a little bit earlier. So I'll say that for me the key word is together. Actually, maybe the global village is somehow gone. In terms of theoretical representation, as everybody talks today about polarization and globalism versus nationalism and so on and so forth. But in fact, I think it's time to build, and it's time to build networks of good, networks of purpose. If that means a better life, if that means a sustainable life, if that means all together, I think, together is my keyword of today. What I heard, what I learned today, and it's a personal expression, I think makes me better. And I want to thank you, and I want to thank you for it.
A network of good. We are trying also to build with this project, IQ Digital. That is not only the summit, it's also the website, the video content we are producing, and it's an idea that started together in a friendly dialogue we have with the BCR team. Then very interesting as a process, basically Vodafone joined starting this edition because they liked the idea. I know it sounds like bullshit, but it's true. So basically, we didn't go and pitch the idea. It's very flattering for us, and it's very nice to see that there are other big companies that are seeing the value in this, going around the country, doing such meetings, having a fantastic lineup, which is pretty difficult to obtain in Bucharest, I must confess that. So thank you all for your time. Thank you for being here, and let's create together this network of good. We are hoping to build the value and everything. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.